Find you a girl who could do both, you know what I mean? But he did not want a woman who could do both. He wanted problems, always. All right, let's talk about the movie American Fiction. American Fiction is a 2023 comedy drama. It stars Jeffrey Wright. Jeffrey Wright plays a writer and a college professor by the name of Monk. And here's the thing with Monk, his books aren't selling. They do well academically, which is probably why he has the job that he has as a college professor. However, they are not selling. On top of this, he is a man that does not play around when it comes to having like intelligent discussions, especially about race. After academically speaking, breaking his foot off in one of his students' asses, the college decides that he should probably go on a temporary leave. They suggest that he attend a literary seminar that is happening in Boston, where he is from, and he's kind of reluctant because his family is there, and so we kind of start to understand that he has some issues. Some family issues, some fundamental issues, some formative year issues. So one of the first people he connects with when he gets home to Boston is his sister Lisa, who is played by Tracy Ellis Ross. And I love the banter between his and her characters. I'm a big fan anyway of brother and sister characters, like the way that people write them in movies and TV shows. Like I love a good sibling banter, because only your siblings can tell certain jokes or like hit you where it hurts, and they captured that very well in this movie. Lisa is confident, she's self-assured, and she is very straight to the point with Monk. Lisa and Monk have another sibling that Lisa is more close to. His name is Cliff, and he's not introduced yet, but he will be, and boy oh boy is that character extremely interesting. But the thing with Lisa is that she's been having to take care of Monk and Cliff's mom, who has Alzheimer's and is played by Leslie Uggams. Lisa cannot handle this on her own anymore. Things are really, really getting tough. And so Lisa's like, yo, like, I can't keep doing this. And this is so realistic because she's the only sister. So of course she's going to be expected to kind of pick up where the other two brothers are not lifting a finger. But something happens that immediately kind of changes things. Lisa dies. Like in the middle of the scene, she dies. It happens so fast. We are still in the beginning of this movie, and it's so disappointing because I really loved her character. But yeah, she just dies. Spoiler alert, she dies. Enter Cliff, the younger brother. I think he's the youngest. He and Tracy Ellis Ross's character, Lisa, they are closer to each other than they are to Monk because they had it harder, but because they had it harder, it's harder for them to see their father and mother. Their father is already deceased. It's hard for them to see them in the same light that Monk's character sees their parents. His wife finds him in bed with another man, and from that point on, like, they divorce, and now he's just living his gay life, like, and he's doing a lot of drugs. He's having a ball, and this seemed like a very fun character for Sterling K. Brown to play. Like, there were some scenes in here that had me cracking up with this guy.
It's 8 in the morning. I'm not flying the fucking plane, Mom.
So Monk feels out of place as a writer. He feels out of place as a black person. And we see that a lot of this probably stems from him feeling out of place in his own family. He tends to be very opinionated, very strong-minded, and he also kind of believes himself to always be the more objective person in any situation or any conversation, and everybody else is just not as reasonable as he is. So you can imagine that he's a very insufferable character. He's a very insufferable person, but he is also very lonely. And I bring this up because the relationship that Monk has with his family, he is constantly reminded that they knew things that he had no idea about because he was constantly alienating himself to a degree from everybody else. For example, his father was having an affair on his mom, and he's the only one that had no idea. He had kind of this very elevated idea of his father, and yeah, his bubble gets burst. There's also an interesting theme about fathers in this movie. I'll get back to that later because I still haven't gotten to the main point. But first, I also want to talk about Erica Alexander's character. Monk meets her. They start dating or whatever. And, you know, I love her. I love her as an actress. Her character in this movie is kind of similar to his sister. She's very self-assured. She's very confident. And they even bring it up in a weird scene.
And you're both fantastic kissers.
Anyway, Monk grew up in an upper middle class family. This is the house that they grew up in. There was a servant that they had for years. I don't know if that's the accurate thing to call her a housekeeper. I got a live-in housekeeper. Whatever the case, there's a storyline with her. But, his father was a doctor. I forget what they said his mom did, but they had another house, not this one, but there was like a beach house or something. And the issue is that there's some financial problems that they're all dealing with now that the mom has dementia, and they're trying to figure out if they need to put her in a home because her dementia is leading her to wander off and just do all kinds of stuff. So it's like they want to put her in a home, but it's extremely expensive. And Monk doesn't really have the money like that. His sister didn't really have the money like that because she had just recently got divorced. The brother Cliff didn't have the money like that because he got divorced. So everybody's just kind of going through a transition where money is tight. And the last thing they need is to be paying, I think it was like upward of $3,000 a month or something for the mom to live in a home. Decent one anyway. So I've set us all up. Okay, here's the big setup. Monk's broke but needs a lot of money and quickly to care for his dear ailing mother. He hasn't sold a book in a very long time, and he is fed up with the state of the world where a book such as Centaur Golden's Weeze Lives in the Ghetto is selling like hotcakes. So let's talk about Weeze Lives in the Ghetto. Now, this is Centaur Golden, played by Issa Rae. Her book, Weeze Lives in the Ghetto, is like the bane of Monk's existence. He just hates the fact that while he's doing so bad and he's trying to write these intelligent books that have characters that are very fleshed out and very dimensional, and he feels like these black stereotypical stories are just trash pretty much. And from the title of her book, it kind of sounds like trash, to be honest. What's interesting is the discussion when it comes to these books is that they're relating these books to drug dealing. Like somebody is pushing something to the community that's getting everybody's dopamine up, including and especially white people who just love hearing stories of black trauma and black, anything bad happening to black people, everybody's eating it up. And so Centaur's book, Weeze Lives in the Ghetto, infuriates Monk, and he is kind of motivated to write his own book called My Pathology. It's supposed to be My Pathology, but pathology. And there's this quick scene in the movie that I thought was pretty cool where his characters come to life and they act out the scene for all of us.
And waiting and waiting and waiting for something that I'm not even going to recognize when it comes.
Mind you, he's writing this scene in this book, and it's supposed to just be ridiculousness because that's how he sees these kinds of stories. Dramatic, is passionate. This character is like pouring their soul out, but this man, who's writing this, is not taking it seriously. And let me show y'all real quick how the scene ends. So the weirdest thing happens, and Monk's book is a hit with publishers. They want to give him like a $750,000 advance. And yeah, he's lucky in all the ways that we all wish we could be lucky. However, being that Monk is an extremely insufferable character, it only serves to piss him off even more that his book that he resents is finding success. So the rest of the movie is him pretty much trying to destroy the opportunity that he's been given while also needing that opportunity because he needs the money for his mom. And so it's just this weird like internal struggle that he's having, and the book represents that struggle. The interesting thing about the book being called My Pathology, I just looked up the word pathology. It's a branch of medical science that's focused on the study and diagnosis of disease, is that it's clear that the book has something to do with like a father-son relationship or something like that. And the approach that this character takes to life, in my opinion, seems to be one that is very clinical, kind of detached. Like his siblings had a nickname for him, which was Detective Dictionary. And you can tell that he kind of considers that to be like the better way to be. He act like a white man a little bit. So he's got a lot of shame around blackness. However, one of the interesting things about his book is that it kind of touches on a common theme of self-loathing and like struggles when it comes to one's relationship with one's father. And this is something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And so I'm not going to say that his book was any good or that I like the hood books that that the whoever wrote this is trying to point to and say these books are trash, because I kind of, I have my stereotypes about those books as well. However, I will say that hood books or anything that has to do with black people, that is not what he would consider nuanced or multidimensional or worth even considering, have a place and have a depth in storytelling that I don't think should be dismissed. Just like his stories are worth being told, other stories are worth being told, even if he cannot relate to those stories. Additionally, he can kind of relate to the story because the whole irony of it all was that his daddy wasn't shit, and neither is he, and neither was his brother Cliff. They are terrible partners to whoever they're with. Cliff was cheating on his wife with a man, just like their daddy was cheating on their mom with a white woman. And later on in the movie, Monk is like a dick to his girlfriend. So,
'Cause you ain't, I ain't.
So throughout the movie, there are a ton of shenanigans. Like, this guy is really trying to make sure that this book does not find success, but he cannot help it if he wants to. He invents an entire character where he's like supposed to be this fugitive or something who wrote the book, because he does not write it under his own name. He uses a pseudonym. And this only helps to intrigue the publishers, the white publishers, who are kind of treated as really, really stupid, because they're really stupid. Like, everybody, all of the white people in this movie are like people who are not to be taken seriously. They see blackness as a spectacle. They see it as something that is supposed to only exist to entertain them. They can't get enough hood stories and any kind of story where black people are experiencing something extreme and traumatic. I was actually drawing a parallel between the mom's dementia and how they treated white people in this movie. Like, there was a scene that was very similar to me. Maybe I'm reading too much into this.
Just coming back, Mom. Hi.
How you doing?
Our waitress isn't wearing a bra.
So, what are we talking about?
One thing that I forgot to mention is that while Monk was in the middle of trying to sabotage his book, he renames it from My Pathology to and to his dismay, the white publishers are like, okay, we'll change it to that. And that gets added on to the crap pile of all of the things that he is hating about this race to the bottom being a winning race. Black trauma and black dysfunction sells. And even when this man is trying to make a point to show how absurd black trauma books and storytelling is and has gotten, he's still only serving to give the people what they want. Another thing with Centara Golden that I don't think that I touched on is that with her book, she was very serious about writing a book. Weeze Lives in the Ghetto. She was very serious with that book, but she read the book and she didn't like it because she felt like it was pandering. And so it was just interesting seeing that she could not smell her own. And in the scene where Monk is trying to explain it to her, she makes some really good points, but it's just like everybody's making good points, but also making bad points. I think the character that made the most sense to me in terms of how they kind of saw the world was Erica Alexander's character, because she read Monk's books. She read The Haas Conundrum, which is his highbrow, elevated book that stars black characters, and they're very dimensional and they're not the stereotypical black trauma porn type book. And then she read his book, a parody pretty much, but nobody knew it was a parody. So she read both books and she enjoyed them both. And it's kind of like it wasn't that deep for her. And that's the thing when it comes to storytelling. You don't know what people are going to connect with. And so Monk couldn't figure out how she was able to connect with a book like that. But it's not really up to him to figure it out. And he was struggling with that, but he was struggling because he was coming from a place of disrespect. He didn't respect the people whose stories are being told. Therefore, he doesn't understand those stories. And his failure to connect doesn't make him smarter. It doesn't make him better.
I just think it makes you an asshole.
The movie ends with Monk selling his story to a douchey director in Hollywood. And the ending is not one that is the most satisfying. And that's kind of the point, is that to be black and tell stories about black people in any kind of storytelling space means that you're going to be confronted with our trauma. in some way or other, especially considering if you're from the United States, that America has been feeding off of Black trauma since its inception. So, yeah, this was not my favorite movie to watch. But, I'm not going to say it's bad. I would just say, like, if you're doing something else while watching this movie, then that would be the best move. Like, I was painting a picture while I was watching the movie, and I think that's the best way to watch this. Like, it moves a little bit slow, and there are a lot of moments that are kind of confusing and unnecessary. But I really like the cast, and I think that there is something to be said about some of the messaging in the movie. Like, I get what the writer director was trying to get across. So yeah, not a must see type of movie, but if you come across it, give it a watch. You might enjoy it. I thought it was okay. It's definitely not a classic or anything like that, but I'm glad I saw it. This was my second time watching it, and I thought it was fine. So that's it. Not a glowing endorsement whatsoever. So anybody who's seen this movie, let me know what you think of it. And if you have not seen this movie and you want to see it, do you still want to see it? I don't know. Well, whatever. Thoughts in the comments. Also, let me know if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about next.